Welcome to this special podcast of Eastern Ontario Business Journal. I'm Michael Curran. There is no denying that many things changed during the pandemic. One of the positive impacts of the lockdown, with people stuck at home, was a spike in e-commerce. As some experts observed, it was like someone pressed fast forward on the entire e-commerce industry. And that spike translated into a corresponding increase in transportation and logistics. The signs of the change are everywhere. I'm sure delivery trucks are rolling down your street just like mine. But the trend is way bigger than trucks delivering small packages. Transportation logistics is growing and becoming much more sophisticated. For example, warehouses today are often equipped with the latest technology and robotics. Some companies are even starting to use AI. And here in Eastern Ontario, there's great potential for the transportation and logistics sector to continue to grow. Consider some of the advantages right here. Much of Eastern Ontario, of course, is located along Highway 401 corridor, Canada's busiest highway. Eastern Ontario borders the St. Lawrence Seaway with a deep water port in Johnstown. Plus, there are rail and air links, including an international airport in Ottawa. For all these reasons, Eastern Ontario Business Journal has produced a special 16-page supplement that focuses specifically on transportation logistics. This podcast will help you understand this sector and its potential to grow and evolve. To learn more about this special supplement, I'm now joined by its editor, Jennifer Campbell. Hello, Jen.
Hi, Mike.
Thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
Well, let's just start off with a kind of a general overview of what you undertook as the editor of this project, Jen.
So this was a special project envisioned by Terry Tayo, and he hired me to do the project management of it. So I investigated the sector and then wrote a piece on the things that I learned, many of which you just highlighted. Okay. And then there were sponsors for the project as well, and they came in with their own content.
Yeah, and we're going to hear from some of those sponsors in just a second. Jen, as you indicated, you did some research and you spoke to many people in doing the special project. What are some of the things that you learned generally on the transportation logistics sector?
I think transportation and logistics has always been there, but as you pointed out, it's become critical to our economy, and that certainly was illuminated in the pandemic, and I think the pandemic actually made it even more so than it was before. It's the glue that holds together Ontario's economy, really any economy. And as you say, Eastern Ontario is very well placed to watch that industry grow, and that's what we're seeing now. E-commerce certainly was part of it, as were stresses on supply chains.
Absolutely. You know, I love the way you frame that, Jen. It's the glue that holds the economy together. I think sometimes we take it for granted, but I think people watching the podcast today, Jen, will get a sense of what the sector is and the direction that it's moving in. Jen, I want to thank you, and you give a shout out to Terry Tayo for being part of the project. Thanks again, and hope to see you real soon.
Thanks, Mike.
All right. Well, that was Jen Campbell, the editor of this project. And I'm going to give you a little overview of what you can expect in this podcast. We're going to look at 3 companies from Eastern Ontario, all of them sponsors of the special project that specialize in transportation logistics. I think what's interesting with these 3 companies is they all have a kind of a unique take on the sector, and they're all in their own specific niche. For each of the company, we're going to see a short video profile, and then I'm going to conduct an interview with a leader from each company. So with that, let's not delay any further, and let's take a look at our first profile. Here it is. Minimax Express Transportation, straightforward and steady. Minimax is a family-owned transportation company that has been shipping goods across Eastern Ontario for 32 years. The Minimax motto is peace of mind transportation from our family to yours. The shipping company has 150 trucks and 225 trailers. 3 generations of the Poirier family now work in the Cornwall-based head office. Yves Poirier is the company's president and works with his brother Mark and father Paul. He says the company has a family-like culture. It even has a trailer with a barbecue on it for staff and client events. Today, Minimax has expanded to include terminals in Drummondville, Belleville, Toronto, Kitchener, and Cornwall. And in early 2023, Minimax completed the acquisition of Snowbird Transportation Systems Limited to better serve its customers. All right, and now we're going to speak with another member of the Poirier family. Please welcome Ben Poirier from Minimax Express. Welcome, Ben.
Hey, Mike, thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for being here. So fascinated by this sector. And I think it, as I was talking about with Jen, it often escapes a lot of our attention. Give us a sense of what's changing in your industry as it relates to Minimax, Ben.
What's changing? I mean, the large trend in our industry, I think, is I think you mentioned it beforehand, is e-commerce, right? StatsCan came out with some stats saying that e-commerce sales increased 68% from 2019 to 2022, and that share of retail e-commerce sales as a proportion of total retail rose from 3.9 to 6.2 in the same period. So, it's easy to say that e-commerce is here to stay and will undoubtedly grow in the future. And Minimax isn't necessarily involved with that last final mile delivery, that you see UPS and FedEx do, but we are involved in bringing e-commerce goods to distribution centers like Amazon. So we saw a massive increase in that in the last 3 years, and undoubtedly it'll keep growing in the near future.
Okay, very interesting. So, for newcomers to this industry, let's dig into that a little bit. So I get that your trucks are not rolling down my suburban street here, Ben, but if I understood you correctly, so you're helping, part of what you're doing, what Minimax is doing is sending those goods to, for example, the large Amazon distribution centers. Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of the freight or goods, they might come from an airport or a port or trains, like you said. You mentioned that in the intro, and we're just involved in bringing that freight from wherever it may be to the distribution centers.
Okay. And when you look into the future, Minimax is a very well-established company. It's been around for many years. What do you think the future holds? So what direction is the company heading in terms of how it evolves, for example?
Well, I think we're very focused on growth at the moment. Like you said in the intro, we just acquired Snowbird out of Hamilton. We're looking to expand a little further down the 401 corridor and to get a terminal out in London. That's in the works. So obviously continuing growth so that we could better service our clients throughout Ontario and Quebec. Shorter times for delivery and pickups. As for what the future looks like for the industry, I mean, it's been rock solid for the past 3 years, especially during COVID, when it wasn't necessarily great for a lot of other companies. But we saw people really change their spending habits from services like travel and entertainment to buying goods. And, we're in the industry of transporting goods, so the last 3 years have been really good. And if the first quarter of 2023 is any indication of how it's going to go, it seems like the volumes are going to remain strong and continue increasing.
Yeah, it certainly looks like the future is very bright, e-commerce and other trends happening. I mean, we're noticing industrial, for example, land is being snapped up all across Eastern Ontario, and more people are trying to build warehouses for logistics and transportation. And I just wanted you to get your quick comment on Eastern Ontario being a hub of transportation and logistics. As I indicated, it seems like there's lots of advantages we have going for us. Is that something that you and your colleagues at Minimax would agree with, Ben?
No, absolutely. I think that's why whenever my grandfather started the company in '91, I think he looked at Cornwall as the best place to set up shop. Just because, like you mentioned, we're right on the Quebec border. We're right on the 401, and you have distribution centers like Amazon, Shoppers Drug Mart, and as you mentioned, there was a lot of land being bought around here, and I think they're building some more distribution centers. So I think Eastern Ontario is a great spot to be.
It's absolutely true, and that's particularly true in Cornwall, I think, where there is a real transportation logistics hub. It's amazing. I mean, literally millions of square feet of warehouses have been developed, and it's almost like the backbone of that city. Listen, Ben, I want to thank you for joining us today, and congratulations to all your colleagues at Minimax for all the success. Hope that continues for many years to come, Ben.
No, thanks for having me, Mike.
All right. That was Ben Poirier from Minimax, and we're going to go on to our second video profile. Here's that video right now. Strader Ferris International, customs, e-commerce, and warehousing. Strader Ferris is Eastern Ontario's only independent logistics and fulfillment company to offer Canadian and U.S. customs brokerage services. Celebrating its 70th anniversary in 2023, but Strader Ferris isn't taking too much time to celebrate. Business is brisk. Strader Ferris includes a Canadian and U.S. customs brokerage operation, a fleet of trucks running back and forth across the border, a full-service logistics division moving freight all over North America, and just shy of 200,000 square feet of e-commerce fulfillment warehouse space. Things are busy indeed. Mike Ferris is president and third-generation owner of the family business. Having end-to-end solutions is key to helping customers succeed. He says Strader Ferris is right-sized, meaning it has the ability to provide personalized solutions for customers. All right, and we're pleased to be joined right now by Jesse Mitchell, the Director of Business Development for Strader Ferris International. Hey, Jesse.
Hey, how's it going?
Good. Thanks for joining us today. We're anxious to explore all that is Strader Ferris, and I'm gonna start by asking you a real basic question here, Jesse. I think when it comes to transportation, people kind of have a sense of what that is: large trucks, warehouses. But you guys do something a little bit different, and I'm not sure if everyone understands what a fulfillment logistics company is, particularly one that does U.S. brokerage services. So just start off with the basics here. Explain what specific niche you're filling in transportation and logistics.
Yeah, so our niche in the marketplace is that most companies, when they ship from Ontario, say into the United States, FedEx or UPS will pick up at their location and take it from Ottawa or Toronto, and then get the shipment into the United States to a hub, and then ship it on to California. What we do is we pick up shipments with our trucks in Ottawa, Canada, and throughout Eastern Ontario, bring them across the border to the United States to my warehouse in Ogdensburg, and then ship them out as U.S. domestic shipments and customs clear them at the border. So by doing so, it reduces the chance for customs delays, and it usually speeds up the transit and offers a cost reduction in terms of shipping costs. So that's one of the niches that we play for companies that are in Eastern Ontario. And the flip side is, if you're purchasing from U.S. Companies and vendors, you have those shipments sent to my warehouse in Ogdensburg as domestic U.S. shipments, and then we do the final mile delivery on our trucks and do the customs clearance in Canada.
Jesse, it almost seems like going through pre-clearance at a U.S. pre-clearance at an airport. Is that a fair analogy?
Yeah, certainly. For the stuff that we handle in our trucks, it allows for no risk clearance, as in the chance for delays are very minimal.
Yeah. And Jesse, I wanted to touch on like this giant milestone that Strader Ferris is celebrating this year. I understand it's your 70th birthday.
Yeah, so at this point, we have to be the oldest customs broker operating in the region. We've had great success over the last 70 years, particularly in the last 20 as we've grown the U.S. side of the business and the Canadian side of the business. We're now up to 7 trucks every day that drive out from my warehouse in Ogdensburg and then deliver through Eastern Ontario and then pick up shipments, bring back across the border. All the comments on the e-commerce side of the business, that has been a big growth area for us. So we're well positioned in Ogdensburg and in Prescott and in Brockville, where our warehouses are, to offer e-commerce fulfillment for Canadian and U.S. based companies, where we can service both the Canadian and U.S. markets from our fulfillment centers. And sometimes there's duty cost savings that we can take advantage of by having the warehouses in Canada fulfill U.S. orders, or the U.S. Warehouses fill Canadian orders. So we're well positioned to be a niche player in the e-commerce fulfillment side of things too.
Jesse, because your company's been around for 7 decades, it's just this incredible thing. I'm wondering if you can give us a sense for the layman, as they say, watching this today, how the industry has kind of changed and where it's going in the future. So how is technology or trends going to continue impacting Strader Ferris and its customers?
Well, the technology issue is important because as the technology continues to evolve, it's going to continue to consolidate the industry into, Amazon's going to continue to buy more and more companies. The larger transportation companies are going to buy up the mom and pop shops. Minimax's acquisitions are going to continue, and so are Will's. So I think we need to be nimble and offer a wide variety of services and solutions to remain competitive against those larger companies. Like we offer Canadian U.S. customs brokerage. We handle full truck and palletized shipments, movements across Canada, the United States, and cross-border. We do full warehousing in terms of pallet storing and cross-dock shipping in both Canada and the United States, e-commerce fulfillment. We're kind of a jack of all trades company, and we need to be to compete against the large multinationals. But that hands-on approach of being a third-generation family-owned company is what a lot of companies are looking for nowadays. They want to be able to pick up the phone and speak to somebody, call me on my cell phone on a Friday night and get an answer. And that's where we can differentiate ourselves from some of the multinationals and larger companies that rely on their technology, but their people skills might be lacking a little bit.
That's excellent. Yeah, and there's something to be said for family businesses, right? There's a bunch of them on the podcast here today, but it's almost a deeper commitment to the customer, Jesse, and making sure their needs are felt. And I wanted to end off by asking you about your customers, in fact. So you've mentioned kind of who those customers might be, and you don't necessarily have to name them here, but I'm wondering what types of companies are doing business with you. So if someone's watching the podcast and they're wondering, hey, I wonder if we should be working with SFI, give us a range or some examples of the types of companies that do business with you.
So we're very fortunate, having been around for so long. We work with over 350 companies in Eastern Ontario today. And that ranges from technology companies in Canada to defense companies, to the large manufacturers, to people that are working out of their basement that have their own e-commerce website and they have to ship small packages to the States every day. So it's literally a wide variety, and all basic companies that operate in Eastern Ontario. We work with really everybody.
Wow. Okay. Well, that's good. I love that final message, Jesse. If someone's interested in SFI, they should certainly be reaching out, and we'll put some information on screen there. Listen, Jesse, I want to thank you for joining us in this special episode of Eastern Ontario Business Journal podcast, and congratulate Strader Ferris for an incredible 70th anniversary. Thanks for joining us, Jesse.
All right. Have a good day. Thanks a lot.
Once again, that was Jesse Mitchell, the Director of Business Development for Strader Ferris International. And believe it or not, we've come to our third and final profile. Here it is. Wills Transfer Limited, Supply Chain Specialist. The Wills family has been running Wills Transfer Limited for 4 generations, and it's constantly evolving to serve customer needs. It's hard to imagine what George Wills would think today if he could see the company founded way back in 1945. Wills started his business after the war with 2 5-ton trucks. Today, the company provides third-party logistics and supply chain management for more than 200 clients. Wills Transfer has 220 employees and a total of 7 warehouses, representing more than 1 million square feet of space between them. It's come a long way, but the growth has been incremental and always in direct response to client needs. In 2020, the company acquired Orange Logistics, a deal that brought with it the opportunity to enter pharma warehousing market. Wills Transfer says it sees continued expansion opportunities in Eastern Ontario and great potential in its land purchase in West Ottawa. All right, and we're now joined by Jordy Wills, the Senior Vice President at Wills Transfer Limited. Welcome, Jordy.
Thank you, Michael.
Thank you for being here. And we got to start off with that fantastic photo. I'm a history buff. So that obviously is a photo of your grandfather's, is that right, truck?
Yeah, my great-grandfather and grandfather would have been in the picture. I believe this is a 1953. And this truck would have been fairly revolutionary for Canadian in the moving industry. So this would have household goods on it, and this truck, I don't know if this one went across the country or not, but it was the largest one in the fleet at that time.
And you're based in Smith Falls, which is a railway town. Tell us a little bit about how that played into the company's formation.
Sure. So our family's been here for many generations. Immigrated from Ireland many generations ago, and so Smith Falls is home. Very proud of that. And the Canadian Pacific Railway had a major hub, still does have a major hub here. And there was a lot of industry because of that. Places like the Rideau Regional and Hershey and many commodities moved in and out of here. So we had stake trucks. My great-grandfather and grandfather after the war, those trucks would go in the morning, unload rail cars, make the deliveries, very manual work, no forklifts, throwing bags over their shoulders for deliveries like flour. They brought a ton of bricks into Smiths Falls through the rail. And then in the afternoons, they would go around and make pickups for Smiths Falls exports and go load those rail cars in the afternoon and evening. So tons of manual work, and logistics is still in our DNA.
And as much as I would love to continue talking about history, Wills is also a very modern company. It's evolved over the 4 generations. So Jordy, give us a sense of what Wills today.
Wills today. So as the video introduced, 7 distribution centers, 1 million square feet. Our team is between 200, 220. And so the problem that we solve today is that manufacturing companies or service companies, they don't want to have to deal with all of the rising inventory levels for both raw materials and finished goods. They don't want to have to manage that space because in their world, that's a variable. And what they need to focus on is better manufacturing, leaner processes, and sales and marketing. And so if they can use a 3PL, so that stands for third-party logistics partner like us, that takes that huge burden off so they can focus on core competencies. And so that's how we've grown, is through strong partnerships with mostly manufacturing, some service, who need a 3PL partner. And I would describe it like this. It is very much like a marriage. It's very much like a marriage because we share health and safety practices. We integrate our systems. So they're very integrated. We learn from their quality team. We have lots of different ways that we cross over. So it's very much like a marriage. And our goal is to make them more successful because they're going to be around if we can help make that company successful.
Yeah, very interesting. I hadn't thought of the level of integration. Great point. And in the video profile, we touched on your 2020 acquisition of Orange Logistics. What was that about?
That allowed us to enter the pharma space. So the customer was Abbott Point of Care. So we've been working now with them for over 2 years, and I would say a very successful partnership where we're adding value to that service here in Ottawa. And it was a family business and a family business, and we used a really good M&A that helped bring those together and look for the synergies. And so we're looking to grow that pharma space, and we already have. We've brought an additional pharma company on since we acquired Orange in 2020. And then about 10 kilometers north of where we're leasing in the west end of Ottawa, we purchased 10 acres by the Carp Airport. And we're excited to start looking at development opportunities in the coming years.
Interesting. And Jordy, we'll wrap up here in a second, but if you were to look a few years into the future and understanding that, technology is disrupting many industries, and I'm sure transportation, third-party logistics is one of them, what do you see coming up for your company or the industry?
Absolutely. So this is either a warm word or a scary word, and that is automation. So the idea here is whether it's truck or warehouse, can we move goods in our supply chain in Canada with less physical and digital touch points? So we need to look at automation. That can be anything from robotics to systems. Can we move things with less touch points, and can we optimize space in trucks and less kilometers being needed there, space in buildings and less touch points? Technology. So in transportation and warehousing, we've got WMS, which is warehouse management system, and TMS, transportation management system. So successful partnerships will be about being able to integrate from a vendor to a shipper so that you can share real-time live data and integrate with inventories. So that's something that
I was going to say, it sounds like it's all about efficiency. I mean, it's incredible how you think that, automation and of course, let's not forget about people will continue to drive efficiencies.
Absolutely, Michael. Yeah. And so some of our largest customers, they made the investment early on to do EDI. And EDI allows basically our systems to talk. And that was the best thing they could have done, is invest in us. And we made an investment to them. And now the relationship, because of that huge technology piece of their inventory, our inventory, and all the orders, there's so much activity that happens in a day. those things are automated because they made an investment and we made an investment for a long-term partnership. So that'll continue to be. In terms of us in the future and our growth, we're looking at the West End and Ottawa. What we do well is we run good, clean warehouses, what we would say is world-class 3PL service. And so we're not looking to store a few things here and there or recreational vehicles or anything. We're looking to come alongside companies and help take that inventory burden off them.
That's excellent. Well, listen, Jordy, that's all the time we have, but I want to thank you very much for joining us today. It really is amazing to hear about the level of sophistication that's built into your industries, Wills specifically, and some of the other companies we talked about. Thanks for joining us, Jordy.
Thank you, Michael, and thanks to the Ottawa Business Journal. We really appreciate this partnership.
That's excellent. That was Jordy Wills, once again, the Senior Vice President at Wills Transfer Limited. Amazing to see these multi-generational companies continuing to thrive and innovate. Well, listen, that's all the time we have for this podcast. I want to give some special thanks to a few people here at OBJ in the Eastern Ontario Business Journal. We have Terry Tayo in this project, Jennifer Campbell, Patty Moran, and Deborah Kuna, who did our graphics and design. Listen, if you are looking for the physical copy of this, there's almost 20,000 copies being mailed across Eastern Ontario via Canada Post. So if you're in that Eastern Ontario area, look out for that. And if you can't find it there, you can find the digital edition by going to eobj.ca. That's eobj.ca, Eastern Ontario Business Journal.ca. That's all the time we have for today. Thank you to all of the partners that made this possible. Hope to see you really soon. Please stay connected to OBJ. Bye-bye.